the crowd was going crazy, and there's not much in life that's better than that.
What it's going to be is we all love good, crisp, clean baseball and guys that are going to be always prepared.
You're listening to Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys on the 95.7 The Game Podcast Network.
Hello there. Welcome back to the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. Sam Lubman here with Joe the Butcher Boy Shasky for episode 111. Shasky, did you know that in 2014, Buster Posey started 111 games at catcher and the Giants won the World Series, which is pretty cool. So why am I bringing up a Buster factoid? Well, as we are very well aware, unless you've been living under a rock, Buster Posey was elevated to the role of president of baseball operations of the Giants last week. Had his intro presser and everything. Buster was there. Bob Melvin was there. Greg Johnson was there. I was there. New 95.7 The Game member Steven Risotto was even there. And of course, the rest of the Giants media was there as well. So there was a lot of buzz, a lot of enthusiasm last week about Buster taking over in this new role. But now that the enthusiasm's died down a little bit, you know, that initial like hiring buzz, now the questions are starting to roll in, such as, and this is the question I want to get into right here, why is Buster going to be able to do what Farhan failed to do, which is make the Giants both A, entertaining, and B, and more importantly, good?
Well, I mean, first off, he's got way more credibility, both inside the game of baseball and to the fans, the consumers. So that's big. I mean, he already proved that the Matt Chapman deal, getting that done. How many times has a Scott Boras client on a one-year deal sign a contract in season?
It's not very often.
For a 6-year extension. Almost never for hundreds of millions of dollars. So, I mean, we've already started to see some of these things pay dividends. So I believe that he's got credibility and clearly he knows what he knows and knows what he doesn't know. And I heard him allude to a lot of the things that he doesn't know. And he wants to bring scouts back into the mix and wants to bring an experienced GM into the mix. He's not going to be running the day-to-day roster.
No.
He's going to be someone who's just overseeing things like a Jerry West. And that's what we wanted the entire time.
Yeah, I think he's going to be like a point man. I think he'll be, you know, it's funny. I think I said this last week, but we always know as Buster being a catcher, you know, 111 games behind the dish in 2014. Buster, he's not a catcher anymore. He's going to be a closer now, just, you know, maybe without the entry music, I think. And hopefully, you know, they'll keep the lights on when he comes in as well. Those are probably very important for negotiations. But that's what I kind of see from Buster Posey here is that this is a guy where, you know, the new GM, when they come in, whether it's Jeremy Shelley in an elevated role, whether it's someone from outside the organization brought in, they will be kind of brought tasked to handle, I think, the nuts and bolts of the organization. You know, they'll maybe, you know, cross some T's, dot some I's, stuff like that. But it comes to the actual negotiations, finishing these contract talks with free agents and players of that such. Buster will come in there and be the final guy, be like, hey, sign the contract, be a Giant. Let's get this thing going here. That's where I think Buster Posey's biggest role will come from. I think the other thing, too, that I'm really excited to see with Buster is the dude just gets it. He gets why Giants baseball is important. He gets why it's important to the fans. Shas, you've said a lot that Giants baseball is kind of meant to be played in a certain way. And he kind of alluded that too. You know, I asked him, you know, what he envisions, you know, for what the Giants are going to look like here. What his vision for what Giants baseball during his time here will look like. And here's what Buster had to say when I asked him about that.
Really, hopefully what it's going to be is we all love, I know Bob loves good, crisp, clean baseball and guys that are going to be always prepared. I think what I can draw on from a player is knowing that if I went into a game and I know I had prepared to the best of my ability, no matter the outcome or result of that game, I could be satisfied with that. And that's, you know, for me, I'm hopeful that our guys are going to get there and that's going to be something that is really important to them as well.
So crisp, clean baseball. He's going to focus on the fundamentals, wants guys to know what they're going to be doing when they show up. And it's just so different than what we were dealing with these last 6 years.
I mean, they basically were at the bottom of baseball in terms of catching the ball. You know, they led baseball in errors year after year. They had no range defensively. They didn't throw a lot of strikes, and they didn't have a lot of strike throwers, and they didn't put the ball in play. Those are baseball principles that whether it's 2024 or 1904 always will apply. And I believe that like they got way too far away from all of that.
No, I agree with that. It's just, it almost seemed like one of the big criticisms of Billy Beane when he took things over, when he started using that Moneyball strategy, was that he was trying to reinvent the game. He was trying to outthink and outsmart the game. It didn't go well early on because he couldn't, win in the playoffs. But after a while, people did kind of figure out how to win with Moneyball. Farhan Zaidi tried to do what Billy Beane did, but on steroids. Farhan Zaidi tried to reinvent how you win baseball games. He thought that you could nickel and dime teams together and win that way, like they did in 2021, which ended up going down as one of the biggest. I don't like to say fluke, but that was kind of a fluky season, what went down in 2021. That's simply, it's just not how you do baseball anymore these days. And so I do think he didn't dismiss analytics. Analytics are going to be here to stay. It's about the balance, though, with analytics. I think Farhan was great at using analytics to build out the back of the roster. It's when he tried to use analytics to build out the front of the roster is when things fell apart. And that, I think, is going to be one of the bigger differences here, is that you're not going to see that thinking anymore.
Well, and I also think that having a specific position for each player is extremely important. We talk so much about positional versatility. Well, if you're subpar defensively at multiple positions, you really don't have a position, And I also believe that the number one reason why Farhan's not here is not because of platooning. It's not because of free agency. In part, it's because of trades, because you can make trades. It's the failure to develop the young players.
Mm-hmm.
And so why am I encouraged with Buster Posey? Because he knows what it's like firsthand going through this system. And he probably has a good feel for what worked and what didn't work and what he thinks can help get people over the top. Development for everyday players, the young players in this system, is why we are where we are at.
Exactly. And the thing about the president,
or the lack thereof.
And when a president of baseball operations job, and it's not just what their job is, not just what the GM used to be. The GM would go out and handle the contract, stuff like that. They are in charge of, literally, as the title says, the entire operation of baseball. Buster Posey got to set the tone for how Giants baseball will operate. Farhan Zaidi created a baseball culture of data, of analytics, of coldness, of calculatedness, to an extent that was almost too much. Too much of anything is bad. With Buster Posey, though, that the tone of Giants baseball, I assume he's going to try and make it as much like what this organization was like when he was a player here, which is going to be focusing on those kind of, I don't know if old-fashioned is the right word, but like those ideals of just, hitting the gap-to-gap hitting, focusing on the fundamentals of pitching and defense, because that is always how Giants baseball has been. And I think we're going to start seeing that return to that form here going in these next few years. But there is a job that has to be done here, Shasky, and that job is getting the Giants back into the playoffs. Right now, we're seeing the Dodgers and Padres make sweet music in October right now. And it's hard not to be jealous of it. It's hard not to wonder how they're going to get back there. So when it comes to the first big test that Buster's going to face, I'm curious, obviously, Buster's job is catch those teams. What's the first big test in your mind that he kind of has to do here to get things rolling?
Yeah, I disagree. It's not catch those teams. Your first job is assess what you have. What have you inherited?
Okay.
What's good? What's not? What do you like? What has value to you that you want to use? And what has value to you that you can use in a trade? For example, how do you view Tyler Fitzgerald? Is he a shortstop? Is he a second baseman? Is he a platooner?
My guess is
they view Grant McCrary. I'm not asking for answers. I'm
sorry.
These are just, I'm just theoreticals.
No. Okay, go ahead.
How do you view Patrick Bailey? Is he the catcher every single day? How do you make him the guy that doesn't fall apart at the middle of every single season and barely hanging on for a thread by the end? Is Jung Hoo Lee your center fielder for the next 5 years? Is Marco Luciano a guy that can help you here at a certain position? Or is he someone that you package in a trade and you just get rid of him, or can bring you back something of significance? Do you start Bryce Eldridge in AAA? Does he start day one? These are the things internally they need to identify. Do you need pitching in free agency? Is Carson Wisenhunt ready to contribute next year? Is Kyle Harrison
come back?
Yeah, there are 1,000 of these questions within just their organization before they look externally. So those are the things I think that's the first order test. What have you inherited?
It's going to be interesting what the attrition rate looks like here, especially this winter, not just within the front office, but with those players you just mentioned. I would have liked to have asked Buster. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to ask him this, but two guys I'm very kind of interested in here in terms of their future is Camilo Doval and Marco Luciano. A lot was expected of those guys this year, and neither one of them met those expectations. I'd be curious to see if Buster's at the point where you got to move off of him, or what I would hope is that there's like kind of a clean slate that's offered to those guys. Like, you know what? Got a new front office here, a new way of thinking. We're going to give you guys one more year with a clean slate to kind of restart your journey here in the big leagues. You know, with Camilo Doval, hopefully it goes into better usage there. With Marco Luciano, hopefully they just do something to make the kid feel like he belongs on a baseball diamond, because making a trade of Jorge Soler to say, this is going to be your position now, Marco, you're going to be the DH, and then ripping that away from him after 3-4 games when he didn't have a chance to prove himself, that's a great way to just ruin a guy's confidence.
Are you asking me like the percentages here? Because I think the percentages are probably both get traded.
I hear you on second chances. You'd be trading him at low value, and
for sure.
Maybe that's the thing you gotta do. Maybe it is addition by subtraction there. With Doval, we've seen how good he can be. If I had to choose, one goes, one stays. I'm holding on to Doval because we have seen how good he can be. I still maintain that poor usage of him this year is what contributed to what ended up being a very, very rough season for him. So we know how good he can be. I'm not quite willing to give up on that.
They need a middle infielder so bad. They need starting pitching so bad.
Well, you talk about, their first big test.
Catcher.
You're already starting to see rumors pop up. Willy Adames, favorite to the Giants. I mean, that would be. I'm not saying that Willy Adames should be on your radar right now, but one of the big failures of Farhan Zaidi was not securing that shortstop position. He had a chance to after 2021. He decided to ride it out with Brandon Crawford, which I got that at the time. That made sense. You're not going to go back and retcon the feelings there. But you had a chance to add either Marcus Semien or Corey Seager that offseason, have him play second before moving him over to shortstop, and he decided to punt on that in favor of Tyro Estrada, who, again, Tyro was good, but Semien and Seager are better players than that. Farhan tried to panic and add Carlos Correa the next year. That obviously fell apart. Tyler Fitzgerald was kind of the stopgap for a minute this year, but I think we talked about, internally, you put out a good list there. Externally, though, I think the first big test for Buster Posey is going to be settling the shortstop position long term.
I would agree. And I'm willing to bet they're looking at trades as much as they're looking at free agency. I mean, I look at some of the great trades that they made, and he was there, like Freddie Sanchez, Marco Scudero, Angel Pagan. I mean, these were all Hunter Pence. These were all great trades when he was a Giant that can help, be a veteran presence who can help you now and hopefully into the future, tutoring some of the younger players.
Yeah. All right. You are listening to the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. Sam Lubman and Joe Shasky coming at you whenever we're able to during this off season. Make sure to like, subscribe, rate, review, share, all that stuff that you normally do with podcasts, but only do it for our podcast, not other podcasts. All part of the Odyssey Sports Network here at 95.7 The Game. Another big question I think Buster Posey has to answer is, what is going to be the deal with Bob Melvin? Now, our friend John Shea, friend of the podcast, kind of got into a back and forth with Buster about that. Did I pull that sound bite? I don't think I grabbed that sound bite, but basically they had a back and forth about what Bob's contract's going to be. Right now, Bob is guaranteed for next year with an option for 2026. But yeah, I'm kind of curious, Shasky, what do you think is the next move with Bob Melvin here?
I think they gave him a pass for this year. I think he was hired knowing that it was a 1-year rental situation. They're going to see how it goes, and we're going to really judge you when we get someone new in here. Did you hear the Will Clark sound?
I have the Will Clark sound. That one I actually did grab. I grabbed the wrong cut.
Play that, and you tell me what you
think
that
Will
the
Clark
organization thought of Bob Melvin.
Yeah, so this is Will Clark with Eric Burns on whatever their podcast is called. I probably should know that.
Farhan was the one guy that I heard that was relieved of his duties. I haven't heard about any more changes.
I'm not going to beat on Farhan that bad, okay? But he had his fingers in everything, especially analytics. That's first off. And second off was he made out the lineup, all right? Bob Melvin would want this guy in the lineup. He'd want that guy in the lineup. Farhan would trump him. So you set yourself up. Because that's Melvin's job. That's the same thing that happened, with Bochy. Bochy would put a lineup in and, we need to scratch this guy. We need to scratch that guy. Look, the reason that these guys have managed in the big leagues for 15, 20 years, they know. Dusty Baker knows, all right? They know exactly what's going on in their clubhouse and they have gut instincts on things, and you need to stick with their gut instincts. Not everything is statistical. And while I'm talking about that, all of you statistical guys that are in the San Francisco Giants organization, you better watch your ass too, because you might be gone as well.
So you tell me, after hearing that sound, you know where he's getting his information from. He's got guys that he is friends with, Pat Burrell, Matt Williams, on that
staff. With all those
staff.
guys. Yeah, Wotus.
So, I mean, you tell me, did the Giants ownership, are they giving Bob Melvin a pass? Like, the evaluation starts today, not last year.
Absolutely. Bob Melvin's kind of on the clock here. I'm kind of curious. So I have thoughts on what Clark said there about the lineup, Shasky.
I want to hear your thoughts. You probably know where I stand.
Okay.
Most people know where I stand.
Yeah, well, I have a question I want to ask you after this, though. But I want your thoughts on that too first before I give my thoughts. So after hearing what Will Clark said there, because you've been very skeptical of Melvin at best, you've been out on Melvin at worst. After hearing what Will Clark said there, do you have a different opinion of Bob Melvin's first year with the Giants?
No, because I was always kind of like, I'm not really sure who's making the lineup. Remember, I said that over and over and over. Do I think he had a great feel for the bullpen? No. But do I also think that maybe they wanted to go to certain arms in certain spots based on some sort of algorithm? Yes. And that's why, again, I'm going to reserve judgment until this year.
Absolutely.
But I'm still lukewarm on Bob just in general.
No, and I think that's understandable because he hasn't, I think, done anything yet to truly show that he is the guy. But with this information, I do think any trepidation you have on Bob Melvin based off last year, I kind of feel like you have to throw it out now. And when it comes to the lineup decisions, I had a suspicion about this for a while. So back in May, I asked Bob before one of the games, how much collaboration is there on this lineup? And he gave a very generic, media answer. Oh, we both have our ideas. I give input, he gives input, and we work together on putting the lineup together. Which immediately reminded me of Bull Durham. When Crash Davis is telling Nuke Lelouch, we got to work on your cliches. Bob Melvin, one of the best in the business at cliches. But I could tell by that answer, yeah, you ain't saying squat when it comes to these lineups. You read between the lines there. The moment for me that really drove it home, and I brought this up a lot, and every time it comes up, I put more and more weight on this moment. This was right around that same time, late May, early June. Bob was getting a lot of Austin Slater questions. Why is he in the lineup? Why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? He got like 3 Slater questions in a row. The third one was from, I believe it was Alex Pavlovich. Bob, great with his cliches, great at putting on a stone face that you can't read. For a split second, though, he broke character. For a very split second, he had this face where he just it sounded like he wanted to say, look, do you really think I want to be playing this guy? But he comported himself. It was a very split second there. I wish I had the video of it still. It was, but ever since that moment, I'm like, there's no way that these lineup decisions are being made by Bob Melvin. I refuse to believe that. So when that happened, that's, for me, I've always kind of looked at Bob Melvin through that lens of that moment of that during the season of, it's hard for me. I look at it like this, Shasky. If I ask you, bake me a cake, but I don't give you eggs, can I really get mad at you if the cake that you give me is not of high quality?
No.
And so I think that's where we're at with Bob Melvin here. So we saw, I asked you, what's going to be the future of Bob Melvin? Here's my prediction for Bob Melvin's contract. My guess is sometime between now and spring training, they're going to announce that they're going to pick up the non-guaranteed option for Bob in 2026 to avoid having him be a lame duck manager, because that's just not a comfortable situation for any manager to be in, especially when they're dealing with the new president of baseball operations. With that said, though, we do know the Giants do have more financial opportunities coming to them in the near future, with the Oakland A's potentially moving out of not just the Bay Area, but Northern California. They were not afraid to move off of Farhan with the year left on his deal. My guess is they will guarantee Bob Melvin's 2026 deal, but then have no issue just swallowing that money if things don't go well with Bob Melvin in 2025. If that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah,
it does. And I just think that everything's on the table right now in terms of manager. I think that they're going to start assessing what they have. This is what good management does. They don't just fire everyone. I know everyone, they're going to fire everyone, trade everyone,
fire everybody.
Start from scratch. That's what bad organizations do. There are salvageable pieces. Bob is under performance review. That's the way I would put this. Performance review. So we're going to see where it goes from here. And if I need to get my own guy, then I'll do that. I think part of the Farhan issue at the beginning was Bochy was never under performance review. It was, you got to go. And that's what bad management does. They just, they don't give people opportunities to win them over.
I think in hindsight, the biggest what if with Farhan, I mean, there's a couple. I do think that Farhan's going to come away from this experience having learned a lot. I would not be shocked if Farhan does get another job, but I do think one of the big, if he could do it over again, is he would try and make things work with Bruce Bochy. So
interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, that has been this episode of Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys, episode 111, recording here on Wednesday morning-ish. Have this episode up later today. Lots of fun Giant stuff happening. Lots of MLB playoff action happening. We're all Padres fans today. Hopefully they do the deed and finish the Dodgers off. And then, with that being said, we will catch you on the next one.